Stop for just 1 second. Before you move on, before you skip past this, put your hand on your chest. Take 1 slow breath in, then let it all the way out. Because what is about to reach you is not just another message you glance at and forget. This is the kind of thing that lands when your heart is finally quiet enough to hear what it has been avoiding. Something is shifting around you right now. Someone is moving closer to you, not in a casual way, not in some random let me just check in kind of way. They are carrying something they have held inside for way too long, something real, something heavy, and when it finally comes out, it is going to reach a part of you that you thought was sealed off a long time ago. You might be sitting there thinking that is impossible, that chapter is done, that story is over, but stay right here, because some bonds do not follow the normal rules of time and distance. Some feelings survive silence in ways that make no logical sense. Some truths keep building up quietly underneath the surface until they have no choice but to break through. And if this found you today, there is probably a reason for that. By the time you reach the end of this, you might finally understand why certain memories have been following you, why certain dreams have felt a little too real, why certain emotional waves have been hitting you out of nowhere lately. None of that has been random, not one single moment of it. There is someone who has been thinking about you far more than they ever let on, not once in a while, not in some passing forgettable flash. We are talking deeply, consistently, especially in the quiet hours when life slows down and there is nothing left to hide behind. They may have looked completely fine on the outside. They may have acted unbothered, distant, even cold. They may have given every impression that they had closed the door, moved on without a second thought, and never looked back. Maybe they even had you convinced of that. But that was never the full picture. Under all that silence, something stayed unfinished. Under all that distance, something kept pulling at them. Something they could not explain away no matter how hard they tried. And now that weight has grown too heavy to carry alone. They are getting close to the point where they have to speak, not because it is convenient, not because they are bored or lonely or looking for entertainment, but because there is a truth inside them that will not stay buried anymore. And the pressure of keeping it down has finally become too much. Keep watching, because this is where it gets real. Think about how silence actually works on a person over time. During the day, there are tasks, people, distractions, movement, noise. It is easy to stay busy enough that the truth stays pushed down. But night is different. Night strips everything away. Late at night, when the noise is gone and there is no performance left to give, the real thoughts return, and you kept returning with them. Your energy, your presence, the way certain moments felt when you were around, the specific quality of what you two had together, it all kept circling back to them, no matter what they did to stop it. They tried staying busy. They tried new people, new experiences, new chapters. They told themselves the story that it was over, and everyone heals with enough time. But comparison is cruel when something real once existed. When nothing that comes after reaches the same depth, it forces a person to face something they spent a long time avoiding. That slow, repeated emotional pull does something to a person. It moves from thought to pressure, from pressure to restlessness, from restlessness to something that needs to be acted on. What is coming your way was not decided overnight. It has been building quietly for a long time, and now it is almost here. On the outside, they may still look calm and put together like life is perfectly fine, but inside, there has been a real conflict happening. They have replayed conversations. They have gone over what was said and what was never said. They have asked themselves questions they did not want to face. Why does this still matter so much? Why does nobody else feel the same way? Why does this one connection keep coming back no matter what I do? And the answer to those questions scared them, because it meant admitting something they had worked very hard to deny. It meant accepting that you mattered more than they ever let themselves say out loud. That is not a light realization. That is the kind of thing that follows a person, that sits with them, that makes them look honestly at themselves without the usual comfort of excuses. They had to face the fact that the connection did not fade because of timing or circumstances or the way life just goes sometimes. Deep down they knew they lost you because they did not show up the way they should have. They did not bring enough honesty, enough courage, enough consistency. And that kind of clarity about yourself is heavy. It does not leave quietly. So why did they stay silent for so long? If all of this was true, the answer is simple, even if it is painful. Fear. Fear of your reaction. Fear that you had already moved on and were completely fine without them. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being seen clearly. Fear of standing in front of you and having to admit that they made choices they cannot take back. Staying silent felt like the safer option. Silence looked like protection. But silence has a cost that keeps growing. And after a while, it stops feeling like protection and starts feeling like a cage. Day after day, the unspoken truth gets louder. The weight keeps adding up. And eventually, a person reaches the point where not speaking hurts far more than speaking ever could. Something shifted in them recently. Maybe it was a quiet night that hit differently than usual. Maybe it was realizing that time does not wait. Maybe it was something small that cracked something open. But whatever it was, once that crack appeared, the truth started pouring through. And this time it is not stopping. Stay with this because the next part is going to change how you see your own role in this moment. When they come, do not expect something casual. This is not going to be light conversation or small talk, dressed up as concern. This is not them dipping a toe in to test the temperature. They are coming to say what pride kept trapped. The regrets, the feelings, the words that should have been said before things fell apart. They are not coming for entertainment. They are coming because something inside them finally could not stay quiet anymore. And that is why this moment carries so much energy around it. It is not just a reconnection. It is a threshold, a crossing point. It carries everything that was held back, everything that built up in silence, every private moment where they sat alone and finally saw things clearly. People often think honesty like this comes from a single emotional wave that crashes over a person suddenly. But this kind of honesty is different. This kind costs something. It grows slowly in private, in quiet rooms, in late nights, in the moments when there is no audience and no story left to protect. And when it finally steps forward, it carries real weight because of everything it had to push through just to arrive. Now here is where you need to pay very close attention, because this is not only about what they feel, this is also about how you receive it. And this part matters just as much as everything that came before it. It would be easy to take their return and immediately wrap it in hope, to tell yourself this is proof of everything, to imagine this as the beginning of a perfect restoration. Maybe it will be, but hope alone without awareness can pull you right back into the same old dynamics. It can make you overlook things that matter. It can soften signals that your instincts are trying to send you. Awareness works differently. Awareness keeps you present. It helps you listen beyond just the words. It lets you notice the energy, the tone, the consistency. Because words are only a doorway. Anyone can say the right things in an emotional moment, when the feeling is strong and the air is heavy. What matters is what follows. Do they move differently after? Does their behavior carry the same truth their words are expressing? Does consistency show up not just in one conversation but in the days after it? That is where the real answer lives. Not in the rush of the moment, in what comes after it. And here is something you need to hear clearly. You are not the same person you were before this. You have changed. You have had your own long process, your own quiet nights, your own questions that had no easy answers. You had to make sense of an absence that was never properly explained to you. You had to gather yourself back together, in places where their leaving affected you more than anyone around you even noticed. That kind of experience sharpens a person. It deepens your standards. It teaches you what peace actually feels like, and what confusion costs you. It teaches you exactly what you are willing to carry, and what you should never have to carry alone again. So when this meeting happens, you are not entering it as the old version of yourself. You are not standing there as someone who is simply longing for what was lost. You are standing there as someone who knows what being with them felt like, someone who knows what losing them felt like, someone who knows exactly what it took to come back to yourself after that. And that kind of knowing is quiet, but it is powerful. Because of that knowing, you do not have to react quickly. You do not have to give an answer before you are ready. You do not have to be swept up in the emotion of the moment. Just because emotion is filling the room, you can stay grounded. You can listen fully and feel everything without losing yourself inside it. There may be a moment when everything goes still, a small pause, a breath, a silence that sits between words. Pay close attention to what happens inside you in that moment. Before the analysis starts, before memories flood in, before hope or fear takes over, there will be something quiet and clear inside you, something that already knows. That is what you follow. Not your assumptions, not your old wounds, not the fantasy of what you wish it could be. That calm signal built by everything you have survived. It can tell you whether what stands in front of you is truly aligned with who you are now. And whatever it tells you, trust it. You do not need to decide everything in one conversation. You only need to be present enough to hear what is really being offered, and honest enough to respond from where you actually stand. That may mean asking hard questions. It may mean naming what the silence cost you. It may mean setting limits that you did not have before. It may even mean recognizing that even though something real once existed between you, going back in the same way is not the answer for you now. All of those responses are completely valid, because this is not about stepping backward into an old story. This is about choosing what, if anything, can exist honestly in the present moment, and truth, when it finally enters a space fully, and without hiding, brings something powerful with it. It does not always arrive gently, but it always clears something. If there is something real enough to rebuild, it will show itself over time through changed behavior, through steady effort, through consistency that lasts beyond just one emotional night. If there is not enough solid ground, that will also become clear. Either way, something unresolved finally begins to close, and that matters more than most people ever understand. Unfinished connections can quietly shape a person for years. They live in the background of new relationships, affecting how open you are willing to be, how quickly you pull back, how much you protect yourself, even when protection is not needed. When truth is finally spoken, it releases that invisible hold, and that release is its own kind of healing. One of the most hidden fears after losing someone meaningful is wondering whether you made too much of it, whether you were the only one who truly felt the depth, whether you cared more, loved harder, imagined a significance that was never actually shared. A moment like this answers that question without theory, without guessing, without needing to construct any kind of fantasy. Their willingness to finally stand before you and speak honestly is the answer. It proves the weight was real. It proves your heart did not create something from nothing, and that matters. Because after pain, the mind builds protective stories. Maybe I cared too much. Maybe I was too open. Maybe next time I should hold back and keep more of myself protected. That sounds like wisdom when you are hurting. But most of the time it only teaches you to shrink something that was never the problem. The ability to love deeply is not a weakness that needs correcting. It is something rare. It needs wisdom and direction and the right place to land. Pain does not come from loving too much. It usually comes from misalignment, from one person being ready while the other is still hiding from themselves, from one heart being clear while the other is still divided between fear and truth. That imbalance creates most of the pain people end up blaming on love itself. So when you look back at what happened, do not turn your openness into something to be ashamed of. Do not rewrite your sincerity as weakness. What you showed was not failure. It was capacity. It showed you the depth you are capable of reaching, the kind of connection your soul naturally moves toward when it is not pretending to be less than it is. That matters going forward, not because it makes the past hurt less, but because it changes how you move from here, not by becoming harder to reach, not by building higher walls, not by training yourself to feel less so that less can hurt you, but by carrying that same depth with more discernment, and discernment changes everything about how love unfolds for you. It means you can still be open, still feel things deeply, still bring your full self to a connection, but only in spaces where that energy is genuinely seen, genuinely valued, and genuinely returned. It means you notice sooner when effort is uneven, when words sound right but actions are missing, when someone is drawn to your presence but not ready for the responsibility of meeting it honestly. Discernment is not coldness. It is care directed by awareness, and it is one of the most powerful things you can carry into any relationship from this point forward. This is the part most people miss entirely. Clarity does not come from replaying every old memory until something makes sense. It does not come from predicting outcomes or analyzing every possible ending. It comes from being fully present with what is actually happening right now, and letting it show itself without forcing it into a story too quickly. When someone is speaking from real honesty, you can feel it even if they are nervous, even if their voice is unsteady, even if they cannot find perfect words. Real honesty has a quality to it. There is less defense in it. There is a willingness to own pain without trying to slide away from responsibility. But when something is not fully there, you can sense that too. When the words are smooth but the depth is missing. When the feeling is present but the capacity to sustain it is not yet stable. Sometimes a person can feel something completely real and still not be ready to hold what that feeling asks of them. That does not mean the bond was invented. It simply means truth and readiness are not always in the same place at the same moment. And if what they bring is not enough, that is not yours to fix. That is yours to recognize and honor without arguing against what you already know. So do not walk into this moment with fear. Walk into it with presence. Let it unfold without rushing to give it a label. Let the actions that follow the words tell you what words alone never can. Let time confirm what emotion begins. And above everything else, trust yourself in a way you may not have fully trusted yourself before. You do not need to control the shape of what happens next. You do not need a guaranteed outcome before you are willing to show up. You only need to stay honest. Honest enough to say what you feel. Honest enough to admit what you no longer want. Honest enough to accept what is true, even when it surprises you. Whether it opens something new or quietly closes something old. That is not weakness. That is the kind of strength that only comes from having lived through something real and choosing to remain open anyway. Sometimes the real purpose of a moment like this is not to bring someone back into your life exactly as they were before. Sometimes the purpose is to show you who you have become, to place you in front of something that once would have completely undone you, and let you meet it from an entirely different place inside yourself. That is growth you can actually feel. That is healing that shows up in real time, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. And no matter what happens when this moment arrives, that version of yourself is already here, already steady, already enough. You have already done the hardest part without even realizing it. The hardest part was not surviving the silence. It was not making it through the confusion or the unanswered questions or the nights that felt heavier than they should have. The hardest part was choosing, slowly and quietly, to come back to yourself anyway, to not let the pain turn you into someone unrecognizable, to not let the absence of answers make you bitter, to keep your heart alive even when keeping it open felt like a risk you were not sure you could afford. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of inner work that most people never fully complete. And because you did that work, this moment cannot break you the way a similar moment once might have. You are standing on different ground now, steadier ground, ground that you built yourself one honest day at a time. So whatever walks through that door, whatever message arrives, whatever conversation finally begins, you are ready for it. Not because you have rehearsed every possible version of how it goes, not because you have prepared the perfect response, or decided in advance how much of yourself to show, but because you know yourself now, in a way you did not before. You know what you need. You know what you will not settle for. You know the difference between a connection that genuinely nourishes you and one that only looks like it does from a distance. That knowledge is not loud. It does not announce itself, but it is there in every choice you make, in every moment you decide to stay honest instead of comfortable, in every time you choose clarity over the easier story. This is not about getting a perfect ending. Life rarely works in perfect endings. This is about getting to a place inside yourself, where no ending, however it comes, has the power to define you, where love is something you choose from fullness rather than something you chase from emptiness, where you can sit across from someone who once meant everything and remain completely yourself without shrinking, without performing, without pretending to feel less than you do or more than you do. Just present, just true, just you. That kind of emotional freedom is rare, and you are closer to it than you think. Whatever comes next, let it be real. Let it be honest. Let it be something your future self will look back on and respect. Not because it was painless, not because it ended perfectly, but because you showed up for it as your full self, and you chose truth over comfort at every single turn. That is the only thing worth choosing. That is the only version of this story worth living. And the best part is this: that choice is already yours. It was always yours, and nothing that happens next can ever take it away from you.